Okay, so this is just a cover for the jack to keep water off while the unit's being stored. Down here there's two switches. There's a light switch and there's an up and down switch, and that will raise and lower the unit. Under here are your propane tanks. In the center you'll see a selector valve with a pointer, and you can turn this left or right to select which tank you're going to use. And right now you'll see it's green in the center. That's showing you that there's gas in this tank. Now when this tank runs out, that'll turn red, and it will use the second tank as a backup for you, automatic. When you're storing the unit, you're going to want to shut these off. There's also a key switch back here, and you're going to want to turn the key off. And the key is to shut off the battery so that the battery doesn't drain while it's in storage. There's a little button under here to turn this light off. Down below you'll see your two waste valves. This is where your hose is stored, in that tube, by the way. But these are your waste valves. They're black and gray. These are for your holding tanks. This black valve, this is your wastewater for the toilet. The gray is for the sink and shower. Once you hook your hose up, you just pull this handle out, and that will drain the tanks down when you're through camping. All right, just a couple things up here. This is a vent for your stove, your refrigerator. That's a little tube. If there's ice on the coils, you'll see some water drip out of there. This is the outside shower here. This is where your electric cord goes. This comes with its own cord to plug in. And over here, these are your water connections. There's also a hookup here for cable. If you go somewhere with cable, you can hook that up. But what you got here is, this is a tank fill. This is to add fresh water. Like if you're gonna go to a state park or boondocking, you put water in here at your house, and that allows you to bring your own water with you. Down here, city water connection. This is what you'd use at a campground. This is when you just screw your hose in and you'll have direct water running into the unit. So this is for permanent connection at a campground. This allows you to be self-contained, to bring water with you. This other port here, it says antifreeze inlet. That's only used when we winterize the camper. So that's not used when you're camping. That's just for antifreeze to winterize. There's also down below freshwater drain. You'll see a white valve. That's to drain this freshwater tank. If you go camping and you haven't used all that water, you're going to want to open that drain valve to let it out when you're home. This is the vent for your water heater. Now this is all controlled from the inside, but this does open. Again, during winterization, you're going to want to, we have to get in there and drain that down and whatnot. But throughout the year when you're using it, just leave that shut, and I'll show you inside how to operate that. Okay, these are little magnetic catches. This is so when you open the door, it'll hold it up for you. In here is, so you got the griddle in here. There's a bracket for the griddle. That's your electric cord. There's also this piece down here. That's a little table for the outside. And this is the inside table. I'll show you a little more of that when we get around the side. So this black rail, this is what holds the griddle and the outside table. They attach, they lock right into that rail. If you're using the griddle, it hooks right up here to propane. That's a propane connector for powering the griddle. There's also a hole right here you'll see, and that is to lower your spare tire. And back in this compartment, there's a crank, gold crank. That crank can either be used, you can lower the tire with it, Also, when you're camping, you'll want to put these jacks down, the stabilizer jacks, and you just crank those down by hand to stabilize the unit. Now on your door, I'm gonna show you how to put these steps down. There's just a latch right here, and you just pull this, and that lets the steps come in and out basically, okay? I also want to show you this awning is adjustable, and that'll be the last thing on the outside. So right now the awning's out, and you can see it's pretty straight across. This is great for a sunny day. However, if it's a light rain, what you'll want to do, loosen this knob, grab this awning here, and you're just going to pull this down, and then you tighten the knob. Okay. And you can see now this awning has some pitch to it. That'll allow water to come off here. However, if it's rainy or heavy rain or wind, you want to close it. This is really delicate, so be careful with this. Normally you leave these loose, and that allows this to kind of flex a little bit if it needs to. Okay, one thing just to keep an eye on, when you go to close the awning, you'll see there is potential for this to touch the door. And when you close the awning, you don't want this to get hooked here. So just make sure your door is not open all the way while the awning's closing, and that'll avoid any damage. Just make sure it's not touching. So when you actually go to lower these steps, you have to have the door open all the way, and that'll give you room here. You can see it's kind of close. So if the door's only open halfway, this will hit and it won't come down. So this will lower the steps down. Now these legs are adjustable. You'll see there's a pin right here. You can pop that pin out, and that'll allow these legs to go in and out to level the steps. And depending on the terrain, you may have to adjust those so your door closes. And if you look down here, you see there's a little gap right there, and you want to make sure the door closes without rubbing on the top of the step. If you have the step up too high, you see it's going to rub. So if that's the case, that's when you need to make an adjustment here. Pop that pin out. You can put the leg up another inch or two so that you create a gap there so the door doesn't rub. Once you've checked it, then you can use the door manually, regularly. You won't have that problem anymore. So this is the main control panel for the unit. So here you got light switches on the bottom, interior. So that turns on all these ceiling lights. Each light also has a button on it, so if it's night and you don't want all the lights on, you can go to the light and you can shut down individual lights so that they're not all on together. The porch light and the awning light, those are on the outside. The porch light's that yellow, and the awning light is the white strip under the awning. Turn those on and off. This opens and closes the awning. And up here, these are your holding tank gauges. So you're gonna see the buttons. So if you wanted to check how much water, is in your fresh tank, then you push fresh. And you see it says empty right now. If you had water, you'd see, 1/3 or full come on. And black and gray, remember, those are your wastewater tanks. Black is when you flush the toilet. Gray is everything that goes down the sink and shower drain. So while you're camping, you can check those, and when you see they're full, you'll know that they need to be emptied. Up here, there's 2 buttons for water heater, and I showed you on the outside. So this is where you turn that on. This can run on either gas or electric. The electric mode will run anywhere, so you can be, well, the electric mode will only work if you're plugged in. So you need to have at a campground with electric, and you can turn on that mode. If you don't have electric, you can turn on the gas mode. And, you know, gas will work anywhere, so you don't have to be plugged in for gas. Once you turn these on, you know, it'll take about 20 minutes to heat up. Just make sure you connect to water first, and make sure the sink's working and you have all the air bled out of the system. You want to make sure the air is bled out before you turn that on, so that it doesn't overheat. But basically, once you get to the campground, you connect your hose, check your faucets, and then you can switch those on, one or both. It'll take about 20 minutes to heat up, and you can just leave those on the whole time you're camping. Water pump. So the water pump is a pressure pump, and that's used if you're dry camping or boondocking or in a state park. That's if you have water in your onboard fresh tank. So say you're going out in the woods where they don't give you water, so you'd fill that tank up at home. Once you get to the campground, you're going to turn that pump on and leave it on, and that'll pressurize the water system for you, so you can use a sink, shower, and whatnot. If you go to a campground that has city water connection, so if they have a hose and you're hooked up to the hose permanently, then you don't use the pump. So the pump is only if you're standalone and you don't have access to a hose and you want to use onboard fresh water. Those are USB ports for charging the phone. You got a 110 outlet over there. Now this outlet over here, this is the GFI outlet. So if you have you know, something that falls in the water, it shuts off the power. This runs all the outlets in the camper. So if you find one of the outlets isn't working, you may have to reset this outlet. So this switch here, this is to switch the inverter on. What the inverter does is takes 12 volt from your battery and produces 110 volt. So it comes out of your outlets. Okay, this is used to create temporary 110 power. Like if you needed to, you know, use a little vacuum or charge a computer, CPAP machine, something that you'd need to plug in, but you don't have electric. So again, this comes into play if you're in a state park or you're boondocking and you needed 110 power. Of course, you know, if you had a generator, you don't need this. If you plug in the camper using the cord, so anytime you're plugged in at the campground, you don't need this. This is only switched on for temporary use when you need 110 volts, but you don't have a spot to plug the camper in and you don't have a generator to run. This will run off your battery for a limited amount of time. Remember, you only have one battery on here, so you know it's not going to run, you know, a coffee pot all week. Okay, you know, this is only used if you had to plug something in for 20 minutes. You know, you can switch that on, and that'll give you, all these outlets now will have 110 volts. Okay, so you can plug stuff in. When you're not using this here, you're going to want to switch that off, okay? Because when that's on, again, it uses a good amount of battery, so only switch that on when you need to use it. So the stove, when you want to cook here, remember to open the glass. And these are your controls here. And once you turn this on, just keep in mind the gas is flowing. This doesn't automatically light like a home stove does. So you'll need to get a match or one of those clickers, candle lighter type clicker, so you can hold a flame when you turn the gas on. That'll light the burners for you. Remember when you're driving down the road to close that thing up. There's a couple other outlets and USB ports over here. So on here, there's a waterproof light. There's also a fan and a vent. So just push this up. You can turn the fan on. That's exhaust fan if you're taking a shower in there. So the way the toilet works, there's a handle, and that's how you flush the toilet. So you just pull the handle and it flushes. Now these don't automatically refill like at home. So before you use this, you want to pull the handle halfway and allow the bowl to fill with water. And then all the way, of course, flushes. But you can see it doesn't automatically refill like at home. So fill it manually. The pink, you're going to see some antifreeze still in here. This unit's still winterized. There's still some freezing overnights here. So the antifreeze is in the system in order to protect the water lines from freezing. So down here, you know, if you use the shower here, you know, you're going to turn this on just like you do at home. Pull this up, that'll send water out the shower. There is a little lever right down here, this little silver lever you can flip up and down. That lever, that turns on the water preheater. Now this is used if you're boondocking, so, or in a state park. So if this is if you don't have a hose connection and you're utilizing your onboard water. And this is designed to help you save water. What this does when you get in to take a shower, you know, normally you turn this on and you're waiting for the water to get warm. And while you're waiting, that water is just going down the drain. So what you would do, you would turn your shower on like you would normally, except while you're waiting for the water to warm up, you flip this lever up. And what that does, it sends the water back in the loop until it's warm. This blue pipe, you'll see change color. That'll turn from blue to white. Once it's white, that means your water's warm, and then you can flip that down, and then you'll get water come out of the shower head. And that way you're not wasting the water down the drain while you're waiting for it to warm up. If you leave that down all the time, you can use it like a regular shower. You don't have to use that valve. That's just a little extra that these guys do. But again, it comes in handy if you're using your onboard water, you know, your 30-gallon supply, so you get a little more life out of it that way. That's something, again, you only use that when you're boondocking or dry camping off your tank. If you connect to city water somewhere where you have a direct hose connection, you just leave that in the down position, okay? And that's the normal position. So the only time you lift that is if you want to put it into recirc mode. And again, that's optional. You don't have to do that. It's just a little extra that they do. So this is the fridge control up here. So there's two buttons on here. There's an on-off button. So when you just click it to on, you should see auto come on. If you don't see auto, then just hit this second button, and that puts it in auto mode. Auto means this will try to run on electric first. If there's no electric, it knows to go to gas by itself. So all you do is turn it on and off, make sure it's in auto, and it will always work. You can manually switch it. You can manually switch this to gas mode, and that's what that second button is for. But under normal situations, just leave it in auto, and it will automatically choose between gas and electric. If you're driving down the road, this will know to go to gas. If you're in the woods somewhere with no electric, it knows to go to gas. You don't have to manually put it in gas. It will do it on its own. Just make sure you turn this thing on a couple hours ahead of time. These take about 4 hours to get cold. It takes a little longer than a residential fridge. Down here you got fuses and circuit breakers. If you want to check these, you just push and this opens. Not typical, you'd have to go in there. That also has the battery charger built in. And on this side, that's your furnace if you want to run the heat. This is your thermostat right here for the heater. You just basically slide this lever up and that'll start the furnace for you. When you're not using the heat, it goes all the way and it actually clicks. See, it says off. It actually clicks into off so that it's locked out so that it doesn't come on when you don't want it to. And this is your solar panel monitoring panel, and this will show you well, a couple of things. It'll show you your battery voltage. So you see right now this is fully charged. It's at 14.7 volts, and it's showing me right now that's 1 amp. That means the panel's putting out 1 amp to trickle. And again, it's also showing me it's 100%. So this runs itself. You really don't have to touch this or ever do anything to it, but it's here to look at if you wanted to see your voltage level. If you had a cloudy day and you wanted to see, is the panel doing anything, you can come in here and check this. The buttons really don't do anything. They just change the display so you can go manually through the different modes if you wanted. But when you leave it alone, it'll just cycle by itself anyway. But it runs all the time. It's automatic. You don't ever have to touch it to make it work. It just runs continuous and will recharge the batteries for you. Up here you got a ceiling vent. This is to raise and lower the vent to open it, and this is to turn on the fan. There's 4 speeds for that fan. This switch here, this turns on the Wi-Fi booster or the Wi-Fi Ranger. If you want to use this, you switch that on and you'll see on the sticker here you have a name and password to log into this, and there's also an address for the control panel. The first time you use this, you'll have to type that control panel into your browser so that you can get this configured. This is your air conditioner here, and this is there's a temperature dial, and you can do fan, and there's also, if you turn it, there's cool. So you can use it as a fan or to cool. It's a couple different modes you can do. Now the table obviously goes in the center here. I have it stored under the booth right now, but if you want to make this into a bed, you'll see these little black holders. The table fits right on those holders, and then you move the cushions together, and that creates one large bed in the center. These will also lift up, so you can pull this up and you can get to the table that way as well. In fact, I think that's how I put the table in there, was through the top here. Little tricky. And then your windows. These all have little cranks to open and close them, except this window. This is an emergency exit. This window can be opened fully, so you can use it as a vent like that. This window you see has a red tab. You can pull the screen, and this window, it's fully hinged, so you can hop out if you had to. This is radio. So this will turn on. This has, so there's inside and outside speakers. So right on the top you see it says Zone 1, Zone 2. So that'll toggle your different speakers in the unit. If you hit it, it doesn't do anything. You have to, like Zone 1, you have to hold it down. And see, now it says Z1 on. So that's the inside speaker. Zone 2 is the outside speaker. There's one out here too. That's Zone 2. So you can put both of those on if you want. This also has a Bluetooth mode. You can hit BT. You can connect this to your phone, play music off your phone if you want. Last thing is the TV. Now this is a 12-volt TV. So this will run right off your battery if you want. There's also, behind the TV, see that little green light, and there's an on-off button? That turns on the TV antenna. So right now, you know, we don't have cable here. We only have antenna. So we're going to have that switch on. But if you go somewhere with cable and you hook up to the cable system, you'll want to turn that switch off. This is your antenna right here, by the way. This allows you to rotate the antenna. You just spin that knob around. Okay. There's also a CD slot over here. So you can, you can put a movie on if you want. Couple things down here. There's a propane hose for your grill or the griddle. So that's a gas hose. There's a remote for the radio, a remote for the TV. It also comes with a water filter you can put in if you want. This brown bag has all the paperwork for everything. So this is on antenna right now. And now I just want to show you with the remote, if you go to a new location, you'll have to reset this. And what you do, you go into menu and you go over to channel and you have to run auto scan. Auto scan will go and find all the local stations for you and load them into the TV. Okay, just make sure, remember, if you're on antenna, you want that little switch back there turned on. And this is the last thing. This is the tire pressure monitor. This has a little suction cup, so you can put it on your windshield if you want. On the side, you'll see there's an on-off switch. And you just basically turn that to on. And this will light up now. And this camper's got 2 tires, so you'll see on the screen the 2 yellow things flashing. Those are the tires. Now, for this to work, you have to be moving forward, so that's why this display is blank right now. However, when you're driving, you'll see a temperature and a pressure light up on here, and that's going to show you the current temperature and pressure in each tire. It'll also beep at you if you have a low pressure or a high temp. You'll hear the alarm go off, and then you'll know to take a look and see what's happening.